Countrywide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lamp.
I thought we would have a chat to Kate Scott. She is the CEO of Horticulture New Zealand. This week, over 900 growers and industry leaders gathered in Wellington for the 2026 New Zealand Horticultural Conference. For the first time, the event unified the broader industry and the RSE sector into a single event with ambitious goals to double the sector's value by 2035 and key awards recognising industry pioneers. To chat about the conference and what is the outcomes for Horticulture New Zealand, I said, is New Zealand CEO Kate Scott. G'day, Kate. Welcome to the show. Thank you.
Hey, Andy. Nice to be here.
Lovely to have you. A busy couple of days. 900 people, that's a pretty big event.
Yeah, look, there was a great number of people that came along over the course of the 2 days of our conference. And as you alluded to in your intro, we actually started with our RSE growers coming together for an employer forum, and then they met with the Pacific too. So great from our perspective to have that many of our industry together over a few days, connecting and celebrating.
Just on the RSE, Kate, we've been speaking a little bit about the new rules that Immigration New Zealand has brought in. How are they being received by the RSE growers in the Pacific?
Yeah, look, our growers were certainly very pleased to hear the changes that were announced by Minister Stanford at our conference. The reforms are practical, balanced, and really timely. The scheme has been in place for coming up 20 years next year, and the employers were very pleased to hear about those that have a strong track record. Will be able to have a graduated accreditation system that will provide them the flexibility that they're looking for to operate the scheme in a way that continues to add value for the growers, for the employees themselves, but also importantly for those Pacific sending countries as well. So look, really well received, and just that grounded in being a little bit more pragmatic will actually make a big difference for the scheme to continue to deliver.
Yeah, it is really important. Talking to Loa Ward yesterday from Immigration New Zealand, and I said to her, I'd love to get an RSE worker on the show, and she said she's going to find me one to talk to them about just how important it is for them and their families and their communities back in the islands, because I don't think we kind of understand just how vital this support is effectively and what it means for these families and the communities they live in.
100%. And look, we just are so blessed to be able to have this opportunity to connect broadly across the Pacific. And when we can see the strength of the relationship that so many of our growers have back, to other people, communities, villages within the islands. I remember talking with some growers, they've had a connection with some villages for 18 or 19 years, and those villages are part of their own businesses and their own families now. And that is, something that isn't talked about in terms of those broader material benefits that actually come from the connection that comes about through the RSE scheme.
Kate, just on doubling the value of horticulture, the Aotearoa Horticulture Action Plan report was presented at the conference outlining the goals to double horticulture's farm gate value by 2035. Are we on track? There's a couple of, I suppose, flies in the ointment for horticulture at the moment. It's not all, unicorns and rainbows, is it?
No, look, it's not. Look, I think our sector is doing incredibly well when we look at, global markets are remaining pretty strong for our produce. When we look at MPI SOPI numbers, that forecast export revenue is expected to reach that 9.7 billion. So our sector has certainly had a very strong period of growth and a strong future trajectory. But when we look at, that variation within the crops, we see, certainly kiwi fruit and apples are going gangbusters. And then there are some of our smaller crops who have had, certainly greater challenges in front of them. But look, at the moment, we look like we're on track to achieve that doubling the farm gate value of horticulture. And I think that's an important distinction with the Aotearoa Horticulture Action Plan, is that it's really about making sure that growers themselves remain profitable and that they can continue to actually reap the reward that comes from the growth within our sector. And so, we are working really hard to make sure that we can help growers to unlock the potential that exists for them and for their crops.
All right. We do know there's a few issues, but I think obviously they'll be worked on. It is election year. Every man and his dog, every woman and their dog is releasing an election manifesto, election priorities. HortNZ is no different. You had you had a discussion on that. What sort of things is Horticulture New Zealand looking for as election priorities?
Yeah, look, we released our manifesto some time ago. Some of the top of mind things for our growers, connect to things that are topical across the whole of the food and fibre sector. How do we make sure that there is, reduced duplication and red tape? So, if we talk about RM reform, obviously we are, deeply working our way through the various aspects of the Select Committee report. So we want to see less duplication. We have priority around biosecurity and access to crop protection tools. Certainly from a grower's perspective, the number of tools available in their toolbox to manage disease and pests has been diminishing over the years. And so we want to make sure that whoever is in government come post-election, that they continue to prioritise ways for growers to access, good tools that enable them to do growing in a way that has a reduced impact on the environment as well. Labour remains a key issue for our sector, as we were just talking about in terms of RSE. Then it's also important for our growers that we have some real transparency around the grocery sector as well. We are calling for some greater transparency there. But look at our sector just wants to have the settings that allow it to thrive. And I think probably the last one I would mention to your listeners is just the critical importance of long-term and strategic investment in infrastructure. For our sector that relies on irrigation, we need to have clear pathways for community scale water storage. We need to make sure that we have roads that don't close down every time it rains. We need to have ports that can continue to receive and send products generated by our growers off to the world. So that's kind of a quick snapshot. We had a great political panel at our conference that was represented by all of the major parties. And so we were able to dive into some of those key issues across that panel discussion.
Yeah, I know with water, you've got a great advocate there, obviously, in Karen Williams, CEO of Irrigation New Zealand, doing a fantastic job and pushing that one. Just on coming back to the conference itself quickly, what was... You go to a conference and kind of, I don't know, I've been to plenty of them, and kind of a theme sort of develops or there becomes a topic that the conference goers are talking about. What was kind of the driving discussions amongst the conference goers, maybe outside the conference agenda, but what was being talked about?
Yeah, look, there was a lot of great chat going on. Look, a couple of the keynote speakers that we had were touching on kind of data in the future piece. So, there were a lot of conversations around what does unlocking data and, what role does AI play in our sector. So that was an interesting topic and part of the ongoing conversations. Another interesting one from my perspective, we had a great session by Gilbert Inoka and also Sir Ian Taylor, and that conversation that was happening around, resilience, strength, and how we actually make sure that we look after ourselves when we're working within our businesses day to day, were also some really positive themes. So look, overall, our conference was actually one that was probably the best word I'd use to describe it was really optimistic. There was, there was a real quiet optimism, and people seemed genuinely excited to be there, connecting with their fellow growers and actually looking forward to how do they unlock that potential that exists for horticulture.
All right, and just finally before we go, there was the Bledisloe Cup was awarded. Who won the Bledisloe Cup?
Yeah, so the Bledisloe Cup is our kind of major event at our Horticulture Awards, and this year the recipient was Peter Reynolds. So he has had a very long association with the horticulture sector, based up in Pukekohe, and has served our industry for a long time. And whilst he has somewhat retired, he continues to play an integral role in supporting our young growers coming through the system as well. So our awards night was a fantastic way to end what was a really full-on couple of days with a bit of a celebration of all those wonderful people that are operating within our sector.
You need to have a fantastic awards night as well. There also the Young Grower Award. Was that Ben Smith?
So that's not that he wasn't the Young Grower. So he was
former Young Grower of the Year. Yes, sorry.
Yes, he was a former Young Grower of the Year. But yes, he was also recognised in terms of with our President's Trophy. So that recognises someone that's coming up through our sector and also continuing to contribute to the sector. And look, speaking of our young growers, we actually did have all of our young grower regional winners at our conference, which was a great opportunity for them to connect with the sector. And we are all coming together again at the end of August to have our Young Grower of the Year grand final, which is going to be held in Cromwell this year.
Yes, I'm aware of that. I've been to one of those, actually. That would be a great event as well. Hey, Kate, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming on Countrywide Connect today. Always lovely to have a chat. We'll catch up again.
No, sounds great. Thanks for having me along. Cheers.
It was a great conference, actually. I know a few people were there, and it sounds like they did all the normal conference things, and some of them even didn't get in trouble. Kate Scott, CEO of Horticulture New Zealand. Thank you for that.
Countrywide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lapp.